Hello and welcome to the Idaho Renaissance Fair Inc.'s YouTube page. We have another fantastic video, and it's another dressing video. And we have our amazing Queen Ippolita, who is not portraying Ippolita today, Janet, and her amazing helper Denice, because as you learned in the last video, you don't get dressed in one of these dresses alone. It's not even physically possible.
It is a team activity.
Can you please introduce what it is that we are dressing up today and kind of the history behind where it's coming from and how it is different from our wonderful Queen Margo?
So we are going to England. We are taking a little trip up to
Crossing the channel,
across the channel, going up to England, and we're going to look at an example of a Henrican/Tudor dress that I had made.
The Tudor, most fashion at the time was after the named after the current monarch. That's why sometimes you'll hear it called Henrican, as in Henry VIII. Elizabethan for Elizabeth. Tudor for the entire family of the Tudor dynasty. So a Tudor dress, which spanned those two regencies, two crowns, would over and all be Tudor, so that would be a general term for it. And as all things, you start out in your chemise.
Yes.
This you can sleep in this for means of modesty. You can also bathe in your chemise. Granted, you would put on a new chemise after you bathed, but it was all about modesty.
So, did the nightgown come from the chemise?
I believe it was yes, it was eventually evolved into a nightgown because the chemise is also known as a shift, was always such a very Unitarian piece of clothing that everyone had one, and it was something you wore to bed. And night shirts, men would their shirts or their chemises would be night shirts, and most shirts at the time for men hit below the knees.
And again, as always, boots before corsets.
Yeah, and then her stockings, you'd have simple stockings. A lot of times these stockings were made, depending on your station, cotton or linen, and silk if you were up there.
Yeah.
Tied at the knee with a ribbon. We're a little bit modern, so we have a little bit of this fancy thing called elastic, which is, as we know, because we are what we call a history light, we don't always have everything that's, as history appropriate. We're not that restrictive. There are companies that do that, and we don't deny them that because that's fun, but none of us are that skilled. So, first things first, we have the shift. Now we will step into our hoop skirt. Now, like I said, this one is more of a traditional hoop skirt than what Margo had, just because she got it. And usually this was, a simple fabric, but it would have cane hoops. This is very collapsible. You're gonna just step into it.
What is a cane hoop?
Cane as in very similar to basket weaving, where the hoops would be made out of cane material.
Like sugar cane, like
bamboo.
bamboo?
It's called caning. It is a type of, very similar to bamboo. It's a reed. Mm-hmm. England and some of these other places have a lot of wet areas, and reeds were used for many things. You've heard of thatch, and that thatch could be used from anything from basket weaving to caning. This would also be used in barrels, baskets, to roofing material.
It stayed flexible, and it wasn't super heavy. So, we're already putting on,
it's very light.
We're, socks and chemise, and we're already 3 layers in, so.
Yes. Bum roll, always important. And again, the lady in waiting, or even if she didn't have a lady in waiting. Her daughters would help her dress if she was, you know, a landed gentry. So. Next is the underdress, and as you can see, front's got the beautiful silk. What's not to be seen is in the back.
Yep. Just like Margot's, where we had the beautiful. Except, unlike Margot's, mine does not have the ties at the side to.
Yeah, she has a very light, which I like this material. Which mine was this material? Mine was actually a bedsheet. Ugh.
So the front panel is made of what they call rough silk, as well as the rest of the dress, which is what they would have had for silk. It's not as smooth as what we have now. This one's a little on the edge, but it still works.
Would they historically tie, or would they just slip over like what yours has done?
They would. These have ties on the sides, but she looks like you have your ties are missing.
I've also lost a lot of weight since I had this made.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. She's been a queen more than she's been a lady in waiting. She's gone up in power.
I've risen amongst the ranks. So it goes over. And this is nice because this is very, very lightweight, and it gets hot.
Yes, and based on, as you can see, the bum roll was small. When you get into the later period of Queen Elizabeth, we would have something known as a wheel farthingale. That farthingale, like they said, looks like a wheel. It would, of course, be caned and padded on the bottom, and it would extend out. Very similar to what a bustle was.
So here's a question for you. People who are familiar with classic Disney movies, in Cinderella, that's French, and the sisters have these massive bobbing back ends. Like, is that anything to do with the similar style of what's going on here, or is that just pure creativity on Disney's part?
Oh no, that happened, but it's later than what this particular is.
What?
But
Disney does take
they do take some liberties.
Disney takes liberties with the bustle because that is, those bustles are, they're later.
By how much would you guess?
100 years. Wheel farthingales were big. It is relatively believed that Cinderella took place probably in the Baroque time. If we go by our favorite movie of all, Ever After, that was early Renaissance. But Cinderella, the animated movie, was closer to the Baroque period, closer to Beauty and the Beast. In a way, it was very at the same time.
So 1700s.
1700s, yes. We like to call it, in French it would be Baroque, or, at that time, or very similar to Louis the 16th, those later years. And then in English time, that would be almost Victorian.
Almost Victorian.
Probably Edward. No, Edward is after.
Yeah, it's
So it's in between Elizabethan
and then it's right on that edge. And they did the thing with the farthingales and the crinolines and stuff is they went in and out of fashion too. We like a really great example is like our 1800s where no hoop skirts, no hoop skirts, no hoop skirts, and then they put on the hoop skirt back in. If you read Little House on the Prairie, like not watch the show, but actually read the book, Laura talks about that a little bit, how the bustles had gotten bigger and the hoop skirts were in fashion and you had to learn to sit in them properly because sitting is a whole other, I mean, if you don't sit right, you're gonna.
Well, historically, I believe Little House on the Prairie started about 10 to 15 years after the Civil War, which was, we would call the antebellum period, where the big crinolines existed. And, corsetry and that sort of thing. And then they moved to And then they were getting closer to the 1900s, which they believe was like late Victorian. And it's also known as the first bustle period.
Okay, so we have the top here.
Now this looks very different from what Margo
Yes,
had.
this is known as a kirtle. In Tudor fashion, as in Margo, she had her stays underneath. This is actually part of the dress.
My corset, my stays, are actually built in. Here, we'll turn it like this. They're actually, you can kind of see it. They're built in to there, and they're flexible.
Yeah, they would either be cording, as in fabric, or when they said whalebone, that's actually baleen. If you've ever seen an image of these types of whales, it was the webbing, is what they called the baleen.
Yeah, they took a lot of that actually from the right whale, which
Yes.
got its name because it was the perfect whale for whaling.
It was right.
It was
the
slow,
right whale.
it had lots of baleen, and it
Yeah.
was large
There's
enough to be
fun
profitable.
whale history about Moby Dick being a sperm whale. It was that spermaceti that they were wanting.
Right, because of their candles and lamps.
Yes. Yep. So one of the other things you'll notice that's different now, we'll turn around so we can show you her lace. We'll go sideways here in a second. But one of the other differentiants is that my sleeves are much bigger than Margo's.
They really
Yes.
are.
And towards the Elizabethan era, these sleeves would end up being covered with rich fur, ermine, any mink, any beautiful fur.
you could hide a small dog in those
Oh,
sleeves.
and they did.
And they got bigger. These are small by standards. These sleeves are small, and that was just a choice I made for functionality as somebody who's got to walk around and interact all day.
So it seems to me, as not a fashion person, that the biggest difference between the Tudor and the dress that Margo wore is that the Tudor is less pieces. They put more of it entwined and functionally together.
Yes, early Tudor would be that. Elizabethan would be closer to Margo, and actually even more.
Well,
I
and
know-
there's definitely another way that these Tudor dresses came together. There's some great videos out there, but the underskirt and this kirtle were actually kind of more of a stomacher like Margo had. They were together and came up in we call it, a thick tank top line, and then you detach the sleeves separately. But this is how I chose to, I asked for this particular style.
Yes, and which is good.
And I'm
because-
bracing because she's getting ready to yank me around.
Yeah, I should string these instead of pulling as I go, because then that's just gonna keep swinging you around.
That's okay.
Well, and this is a good time to reference Pirates of the Caribbean
Of course.
when Miss Swan gets her first corset. Like, it really was a physical labor to get those together so you could have the quote perfect figure, end quote.
Yeah, but they
Women in
over
England
tightened
must
it.
have learned not to breathe.
They over tightened it because, and the thing is, the basis we have on history on tight corseting is drawings. We don't have photography of tight lacing, or extreme lacing or extreme corsetry is rare. Even at that time, corsets were actually very comfortable. That's why they lasted for people wore corsets for almost 200 years. They are very comfortable if done right. But as you know, as we've talked before, the Queen sets the fashion. And Queen Elizabeth was a tiny woman. You can actually go to England and see her effigy stays. And they were small. She was a tiny woman. Everybody wanted to be like the Queen. That's why we shaved our heads. So we want to look like the Queen, so we are going to be extreme corseting.
Because up until that point, the rounder figure was more in fashion. So for like Ippolita's time, being a bigger girl was what you aim to be. Plus, you're looking at, when you're talking about nobility and stuff, if you have a rounder figure, male or female, you can afford to eat a lot of stuff. And again,
that means you're rich.
that one other way that they were showing off the money.
That means you're rich. You got the money to eat.
Well, and it's funny to mention as well, like corsets, a lot of people will put corsets with women. There was a lot of men at the time and advancing all the way up into the Civil War in America where men would wear corsets as well to help with their posture.
Yes, yes. Louis the 16th, known as the Sun King. I think it was Louis the 16th or 18th. He was also known as the Sun King. He really brought male corsetry into fashion. High heels and stockings.
Yeah, we actually just talked a little bit about that in our thrifting video, about how if you are a man looking for a cheap, noble costume, you would look in the women's department for something with heels, because that's what they wore. It was not a ding against your masculinity to have heels. It was in fact a huge plus. And there goes the physical.
Yep.
She just likes to beat up on me.
Oh yes, well, you did it to me.
I did it to you, and I do it again. No, I'm right.
Yes.
Now, was that a step or was that a pop?
No, that's a step.
Okay.
I've got I brace with one foot back, and then so that one foot just sometimes has to
Come back down.
it gets yanked off. It's not as much. We have some that pull you. You literally have to have somebody standing in front of you because they pull so hard.
Yes, and if corsets changed throughout the centuries. This corset, or this kirtle actually, the traditional shape for these, I'm going to tuck this under because we don't want to see our laces. The idea was you wanted to make the female shape a cone. A cone. There you go.
You got me?
I got you.
Okay.
Up a little bit. There we go. All right. Get that under there. She's all in.
Yep.
Now comes the fun part.
The
accessories.
ornaments.
So, what do we want to do?
Now, Janet, it looks like you have some kind of brooch or something in the front. Is that something that would be typical with the Tudor?
They did have.
Yes.
They did. Yes. They would put the cameos or jewels. I just happen to like cameos a lot, so I chose a cameo. But they put pearls and trim and jewels and such on there.
Yeah, it would also be they would call it bodice jewelry. There was usually something along here, and it would drape down. On Margo, you saw it. She had a row of cameos, a dip, and then 3 strands of pearls.
Now, explain a cameo. Because I think we know what a cameo appearance is.
Yeah,
in
cameos
videos.
are actually very in fashion, in vogue at this time. They're new. And it's usually made of ivory, and it's just a silhouette of a woman cut in ivory and placed. I had to look it up because when I was creating Margo's outfit, I didn't know if cameos were Renaissance. They are, but they're late Renaissance. You wouldn't see too many cameos in early Italian. They became really popular. It's something that probably came more further with the trade, because it was cameos, much like anything that was carved in jewelry, carved in jade, or carved in ivory was more Eastern.
Yeah.
China.
So it's got to come on that silk road.
Yes, and we love to show off our silkiness. You want your girdle?
Let's do the girdle.
Now, you had the perfume thingy
Yes,
that draped in the front. Is this the same thing?
Yes.
Yes. So mine's smaller than what Margo's is.
Is that a personal choice or is that a Tudor thing?
No, that's a personal choice.
It's a personal choice. It also
They're
based
heavy.
on how much you can afford.
Yes. So as a lady, the character that this was created for would have been minor nobility. So she's not going to have all of the bodice jewelry. She's not going to have all of the big things.
That's what her station will allow.
Yeah. So mine is smaller, and then this particular Tudor girdle is based off of other pictures that we see from that time, and I actually made it myself. I've made others, but unfortunately they fell apart. I didn't do a good job.
Girdles are hard, and of course, in Margo's, as you remember, it was more elaborate. It had extra swoops.
She got the extra swoops.
As the queen she deserves. The extra sleeve.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so as a minor noble, I wouldn't
Swoop.
necessarily swoop as much.
Yes. Again, this is all about showing your wealth.
Yeah, if you watch like Pride and Prejudice, you can hear them talk about allowances and how they were going to afford things and show off things, and it's very much so after all of this part, but it had to come from somewhere.
Right.
And this Tudor period is definitely one of the roots of that culture.
Oh yes, the Tudor influences of the Tudor dynasty in England lasted for generations.
Mm-hmm.
And like we've said, and it's also been mentioned in a lot of historical shows that depending on how much money you had, you would not be having a new dress every day, every week. This is something that only the Queen could do. So it would because the styles were the style trends were slower at that time. You could actually, this dress could last almost the entire Tudor period, with slight adjustments for like when she moves into like the later period. She could add fur to her sleeves. She could add the extra over sleeve. She could add more adornments to the stomacher or the kirtle, and that would allow her to continue to wear the dress, but just make allowances. Mm-hmm. Last item. This is the French hood. Now, I know we're in England, but everybody wants to be fashionable, and this was the fashion of the day. At this time, when Catherine of Aragon, she was famously known as wearing a gable hood. That's the one that looks like a house. It actually looks like the steeple of a house. It's a gable.
It's pointed, and so that's early. The French hood, the earliest they can trace it coming over to England is about 1520.
Yes.
But
And the Boleyns.
Mhm.
This was something Anne Boleyn brought with her because she spent a good portion of her time in France. And of course, we all want to be.
we all want to be fashionable.
So we would have it. Now, it has a tie on it. Traditionally, they would tie it under the chin, but we don't like that. We thought, yeah. So we'd actually, because there are paintings of Anne Boleyn with her French hood tied under her chin, but we'll tie it. Oops. We'll tie it behind.
Or you can use it as a blindfold.
Yes.
Apparently.
You got it?
Yeah. Okay.
I got it tied.
Okay.
Is it tied up?
Yeah.
No.
It'll do for now. It wouldn't last all day, but
No, it would if we do this. Because like I've said in my my other class, this is what your bun is for.
Yep.
You anchor the sucker to the bun.
And with the veil, I don't necessarily have to put another head cover or a snoot on.
No, the veil would cover that. Because of course, your head is always covered. Your hair is always covered.
So it went under.
Yeah, I put it under and then around the bun. Bun is anchoring it. It's either tied along the chin or around the bun. And that method goes all the way up. Buns work everything.
Buns are timeless.
Yes. And then of course, because she is a noblewoman and she has,
There.
she would have pierced ears. That's fun. So she would have her pearls. And of course, like we said, pearls, these are not cultured. These are, people would die for these in Greece. So yes, show your colors, show your looks. And then she could add, you had your fan, but
Oh, it did.
a fan.
I don't know where it is.
You can add a fan, you can add a book, and just promenade. You want to walk in it?
Oh, yes. And again, Denise talked about the Venetian shuffle.
Yes.
It is a thing. The steps are tiny because if I were to take big steps, as you can see, the dress is already caught under my foot. So you have to be very aware of your circle of danger.
Circle of influence, yes.
Yes.
But it's all about keeping people away. I can't get too close to her.
No. You hit my.
Yes, I would hit that.
You hit just my skirt.
Here, you're working on your air conditioning.
Yes, we need it. We need it. It's very hot. It is hot already. It's air conditioned in this building, and I'm already
Yes.
like, whew.
And another big question that we get, especially when we get into these type of layers, why? It's so hot. Why did you wear all those layers? At this time in history, we were going through what was known as the Little Ice Age. It was about 400 years that probably ended around the 1700s. You were lucky if the weather got up to 70. It was really cold. There's no such thing as central air or central heat. And anybody who's lived with fire and lived with like wood heat, that only goes so far. So it's all about the layers. This is how you keep cool. And if she got too hot, she could remove her sleeves. Now, not on this dress, but on later other designs. That, as I said, sleeves were removable. The fur would definitely be removable, and would vary based on time of year. And this is dressing a Tudor Henrican to Elizabethan lady.
Well, thank you so very, very much. That was awesome. I mean, just, it's subtle, the little differences, but the fact that there was such a rivalry between England and France that even though England was taking, such as the French hood, cues from France, they made it their own thing. So, fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this for us. If anyone has any questions or comments, of course, do make sure you post those. If there is another style of dress or for men or women that you would like to see, definitely let us know, and we'll see if we can do that for you. This has been the Idaho Renaissance Fair, Inc. We hope that your history is as fun as our history, and we will see you on the next one. Huzzah!